Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. You know, this technical activity here of this modern world we're in. You know, I want to get everybody ready because we're about to go through our program here. I'm going to try and help keep everybody safe and secure where you are. And there's things we need to do as we start to come forward. Now, the first comments that I'm going to make is I'm going to tell you who I am a little bit so you understand my background. Okay, my name is Joe Pangaro. I'm a retired police lieutenant. I served for 27 years in active duty in my police agency. It was a great time. I loved every minute of it. It was an opportunity for me. I worked my way through the ranks. I was a patrol officer. I was a detective, detective sergeant, detective lieutenant. I was in charge of training. I'm a certified hostage crisis negotiator. I went to FBI training for that. When I left police work, I decided to take my skill sets with me, and I went to the schools. I had children in school at the time, and I was very concerned about all the violence that was taking place. It was an opportunity for me to use those skills to try and keep the schools safe. When I got there, I found a district that really wanted to do the right thing. They just didn't have a lot of input. You know, there was a lot of programs out there. The police department locally did a couple of things, but they were not as trained as they should be. I was trained by Homeland Security in threat assessments for schools, religious facilities, businesses, hotels, you name it, how to conduct a threat assessment to determine the weaknesses and the strengths of a location. So as I started to do that for my district, I saw there was a need for it in many places. I put a lot of programs together to try and help my school and other schools around to stay safe. It is extremely important. The first thing I want to talk about, now that you know a little bit about me, is that I've dedicated my life to this, to make sure that people are safe and secure. I find a lot of things when I go out there in the world. I see that a lot of people talk about this. We talk about safety and security in our businesses. We talk about it in our schools. But what do we actually do? So while we talk about it a lot of people check off boxes that they do kind of drills and they talk about it. It is not as important to everyone as it needs to be. You know, preparedness is the key word. We don't want to be paranoid that something's going to happen. We want to be aware and prepare so that we can handle anything that does happen. So a little while back, I'm on the experts board for Campus Safety Magazine, and they asked me for some input on what I thought probably in May of 2020, as we were going through the COVID first lockdowns, and things were different than we thought, right? 15 days and then we'll all be good. And then it turned into longer. And now we know it's been well over a year and we're just starting to open up. At the time, what became clear to me was understanding some of the things that cause people to go off, that make people violent, where they would attack your workplace, your church, attack your school, attack the children, attack each other. These are the things that happen. Is one of the biggest concerns that we need to look for is when someone feels disconnected from the group. They don't feel part of the group, whether that's a student, an employee, or whatever. They feel on the outside of the group. They have no connection to the people or the institution, and that leads them to sometimes strike out. And if we had those connections, we might be able to prevent a lot of that violence. So what happens in COVID after over a year? We have people locked down, disassociated, people not connecting together, people staying apart. They can't see family, they can't see friends, the schools are closed. So the impetus for violence that we had before, I felt was going to be more prevalent as we come out of the lockdowns and as we start to try and get back to normal. There's an old saying, don't choke on the cat's tail. It means when you're almost done with something, there's very few things left to do, be careful. Well, in this instance, the cat's tail would be as we're coming out of the lockdowns, we're getting back to normal. People are getting vaccinated. People are starting to feel better. There's a little herd immunity going on. We can live life again. Unfortunately, I've been proved correct in my fear that as people come out, this was going to happen. You know, just looking around, you see there's been 8 school shootings across the nation just in 2021, right? And that we were barely open at the beginning of 2021. We're seeing workplace shootings. You know, people in the business coming into businesses and places and attacking people is actually on the rise. So this, I think, is more important than ever as we start to come back together, that we refocus on the safety and security, on what we need to know so that we can move forward and do the right thing. And that's what our program is about today, to help you take a look at your facility, no matter what your facility is. We got to keep in mind that we talk a lot about schools, and we say businesses, and any place that people gather is a place that could potentially have a violent incident, right? So it doesn't matter what your facility is. If you've got children in the school or you've got people in your business, we want to keep people safe. How can we go about doing it? What do we need to look at? What should our concerns be? And can we spot potential violence before it happens? So that's all we're going to try and cover today. I'm going to try and move through it kind of quickly. I appreciate everybody being here, but we are all in this together, as they say. All right, so the basics of a secure location includes an understanding of where the threats come from, so you can properly plan to make the environment secure, right? Obviously, we don't know how do we get hurt? Who hurts us? Where do they come from? So the threats come from two main places, right? There are internal threats and there are external threats. Understanding each one and how we can prepare for each one is important. You know, if we look at any kind of a preparedness, ICS, the ICS system of dealing with things, if we look at the NIMS model, if we look at storms, how do we prepare for a bad storm? It's understanding the danger and then preparing for the eventualities or the possibilities and doing the best we can. Then we train, we stay aware of it could happen, see signs of things happening, and then we go into action. It's that action that's going to help us. So our main threats come from internal and external. Our internal threats come from people who have a legitimate reason to be on your property in your facility. Okay, these are students, employees, parents, guardians, your staff members, delivery people that you let into the facility, right? Other approved visitors, and anyone else on your property or in your facility that you allow in there, right? So we think about who those people are, right? Who are we letting in? The external threats, these come from people who do not have permission to be on your property or in your buildings. These can be trespassers, criminals, potential attackers, fired employees, or disgruntled employees, right? But they're an internal threat, right? Maybe if you fired them, they can't come back. Do you prevent people from coming back in, right? We'll talk about that too. Or anyone else that comes onto your property or into your facilities without your permission. Now I'm going to look at that fired employees for a minute. This is one that we often think, you know, you fire somebody and that's who we hear. They got fired and they come back. Well, it's not always that. Sometimes it is an internal threat, someone who has a problem in your company. Maybe they were disciplined. Maybe they are not connected to everybody else. Maybe they're the person that makes those comments around the water cooler at lunch that scare people, right? So we have to understand the levels of threats and how do we look at that employee? What can we do? What is a threat? And when do we take action? So recently in Long Island at a food store, there was an employee who was being disciplined, and he left the meeting with the managers being disciplined. And he came back with a weapon, and he came in and he killed several people. This is repeated over and over and over again. Do you have a policy that says employees who are either disciplined or suspended or fired, they cannot just come back in the building? Now, the mechanism of keeping them out could be difficult. Like a food store, anybody's going to come in that front door. But the reality is, when we know someone has been removed, they shouldn't be here anymore. Do your people know that? Can they call you and say, hey, just so you know, Johnny's back in the building, and that might put you on notice, okay? So internal and external threats are where our danger comes from. How do we plan for these threats? Well, internal threats can be planned for by knowing as much as we can about the people and the visitors that we allow into our facility. Proper training for our staff members to recognize the signs and symptoms of potentially violent people, staff members or visitors, is extraordinarily important to us. Are there signs we can see that someone is potentially violent before they attack? So I write lots of articles. I write for a lot of different publications. And one of them was, can we spot violence before it erupts? And the answer is yes. In many, many cases, we can see potential violence. And it's what we do once we see that violence or that potential. How are we dealing with it? So when it comes to employees and students, there's a process out there. In the schools, it's called a student-based threat assessment. And then anywhere else is human-based threat assessment. It means people. And there are signs and symptoms of someone who is starting to build up to the point where maybe they're going to attack you. Do they make nasty comments? Do they say things that seem veiled? And we'll see when we talk about threats, a veiled threat. Is it really a threat? Is it not a threat? So when we hear these kind of things, when somebody says, they suspend me again and they'll be sorry, right? That's an absolute threat. But people parse their words because they know you might call the police. And if the police show up, they're going to say, hey, did he threaten to kill you? And you're going to say, well, no, he said everybody will be sorry here. Well, what's that mean? That's not a threat. To some people, it's not, right? So we have to understand that absolutely is a threat, by the way. Everybody here will be sorry. What else could that possibly mean? So we have to look beyond just the words that people say. But a student-based threat assessment training or a human-based threat assessment training is where your people, you create a team of people in your business, in your school, whatever, that are specifically trained to respond when there's any kind of a threat, to evaluate it, to make an analysis of what that threat is, and then how do you respond. And we can do that because there's a thing called leakage. Now, leakage is a concept. When someone is upset, when they're angry, they will often say things, right? They will say things to let you know that they're upset with you. They don't come right out and say, this is the biggest problem, but they'll say little, I hate this place anymore. It used to be good to work here. I hate the kids in this school, whatever. They start to leak things out. How else can they leak it out? We're going to look. Social media posts. This is huge. People say things on social media, right? When there's an attack, what do? We go back and grab their social media. And often we see that they were foretelling what they were going to do. So social media posts, writings, drawings that kids and adults say, a kill list. How many kids make a kill list and then actually act on it? Do you know what a kill list is? Do you know how to investigate? I teach law enforcement officers how to properly respond to a kill list, to a threatening cartoon that a kid drew or an adult drew, because we don't always recognize it as the threat that it is, and then we have to react. So that's some of the things we'll go through here, and I have some pictures and we can look at. And so there's 3 pillars of security in your facility. And it doesn't matter the facility. The 3 pillars of security are preparation, communication, and notification. So if we look at each one individually, preparation is what you're doing now. You're on a webinar. You're listening to see what should I be looking at? Are there some new ideas? Are there things that we already do, which is great. You enhance the strengths and you mitigate the weaknesses. Do you train your staff? Do you get them the training that they need, or do you just talk about it? Do you plan drills of real value, not just check off the box? A lot of places do that, schools and businesses. Well, it'd be a good idea to do a drill. So we talk about a drill, we lock down for 5 minutes, we check it off, we get back to business, right? Preparation means doing everything we can to consider the threats, be prepared to respond to the threats, training, equipment, all the things we need to have in place to prepare us to survive and respond. Then the next we have is communication. If there was an event in your facility, your school, your business, your religious facility, whatever, how would you let everybody else know that there was a problem? Now, I go to a lot of schools and I do threat assessments for lots of schools. And they'll say to me, well, we have intercoms. And then I go to the classrooms and I find out the intercoms don't all work. Often I'll ask the leader, whether it's a college leader or a school leader or a business leader, who in your facility is allowed to call the building into lockdown? If somebody was sitting looking out this window and saw somebody approaching with a weapon, would they be allowed to put the building in lockdown? Well, most of the schools, the leadership says to me, oh yeah, anybody here can call a lockdown if they see something dangerous. But then I go and I speak to the staff, the custodians, the teachers, the other administrators. I said, hey, are you allowed to put the building in lockdown? Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. I think I have to call the office and the principal has to make the call, or the manager has to make the call. And so your messaging is lost because our preparation was not really good. People don't really know. You might have a great plan, an excellent plan you wrote, you put together, but if people don't know it and practice it, it doesn't have a lot of value, right? So communication, how are you going to tell everybody if your intercoms don't work? Well, there's equipment you can use. There's equipment you can get. There's apps you can put on your phone that anybody can open the app, see what the problem is, and hit a button, lockdown, shelter in place, medical emergency, whatever, and it goes out to everyone, including the local police. Now, the local police officer's driving by. Wouldn't that be great? Driving by and looks and sees buildings in lockdown, active shooter, and they go right there. That cuts out the call for help, that cuts out the 911 operator, that cuts out the misinformation, the ringing phones. People are busy, they couldn't pick up the phone, goes right to the officer, and the officer turns around and responds. When it comes to surviving as best as we can an active shooter incident, there's a saying that I use. It's called time equals life. The key to these events is that they often happen and erupt very quickly. The timing, as we'll see as we go through the program here, the timing, you need to survive. You need to plan on surviving before you get law enforcement there or armed security or someone who can help you against a person with a gun and the desire to kill people, is between 2 and 15 minutes. That's how long these incidents last from the time the shooter makes themselves known, either tries to break into your facility, starts shooting the gun, pulls a gun out of a backpack, starts shooting in the lunchroom, whatever. Between 2 and 15 minutes is the length of these things before, as bluntly as I can put it, until everyone who's going to be dead is dead. We know statistically in these events that 50% of the time after the shooter kills who they're going to kill, they kill themselves. So suicide, suicidal talk, suicidal ideation, commentary is an important precursor to somebody doing something like this. We know that about 50% of the other time that these things end is when armed security or law enforcement arrive and they apply force to the person with the gun trying to kill people. It is very, very rare that anyone puts down their weapon and surrenders. Sometimes they're accidentally caught. They weren't prepared and they got caught. When we think of the Parkland high school shooter, this person went into the building, was not stopped. There's a whole bunch of problems that they had down there with their security response and planning. But he got into the building, started shooting. When he was done, he put down his gun, took off his clothes, changed, and was out of the building before they even realized that it was over. In the newspaper shooting in Maryland, this was a person who had a grudge against the newspaper for an article they wrote, showed up, walked right in the building because nobody was watching the door, no security, killed several people, 5 people, I think, and then decided to hide his stuff, and he hid as though we're thinking that when it was over, he would go out with the rest of the people, but they kind of picked him out. That's the guy that was doing the shooting, and they captured him. That is a very, very small percentage of people. It's either they kill themselves or security takes them out. That's your big. Those are your big takeaways from that. So you got to be prepared to survive for 15 minutes before help gets there. That's the key. So how do you tell everybody? Right? You can get wall units. You hit a button. It has a pre-recorded message that goes out to the whole facility. It calls the police. There's lots of different things you can do. If you have questions about that, you can reach out to me. I have lots of different connections to put you in touch with different people, and you make the decision of what equipment you want. But you need to be prepared. You need to be able to tell everybody in your facility. How do you tell people out on the football field that there's a kid in the gym shooting up the gym and they should make a move? How would you tell people that? That's an important thing to consider. Preparation, communication. And the third pillar of security and survival is notification. How do you call for help? How are you going to get this call out? Does somebody have to physically dial a phone? Do you have a pre-recorded button you can push? Do you have someone on scene? A lot of schools have SROs. Would the SRO be able to respond very quickly? All right, so if we look at these 3 areas, if we boil everything we have to do, our plans, everything we're thinking about doing into these 3 areas, preparation, communication, and notification, it can keep us focused, right? And keep us focused to decide, what else do I need to do? Are we prepared? Can we communicate? And how do we call for help? And in the meantime, what do you do to lock down? How do you get out? All that kind of stuff. So your preparation should include a security assessment of your facility, a TBRA we call it. Now, in our modern world, we look at an all hazards TBRA, because if we look at the world just as an active shooter, we may or may not be secure for that. But what if there was a major disturbance in your community? I know I just had a large district in Colorado. They're concerned about civil disturbance, and where the disturbances are right near the school, and they wanted to see it. How could we respond to this? Are we doing the right thing? So if you have a business, you want to look at the physical security of your facility. That's what a TBRA is. If people, can they walk in the front door? Is there anybody watching them? Do you have the proper cameras? Do you have the responses? Do doors lock? Do you have open doors? I can't tell you how many places I go to that tell me we are secure, absolutely. And I find my way in a side door. There's a delivery, and the delivery man and somebody go in with the product. I walk in right behind them. It's not as secure as we think. So we need to have a good, solid threat assessment, and it has to be paired up with excellent policy and procedure and training. Now, our local police can often do these for us. You call your local police, they may or may not have someone trained in this, but it's worth a phone call, right? What you might find though, is that when I did this as a police officer, I had an entire community to do, right? I didn't have the time to spend as much as needed at each one of these facilities because I had lots of them to do. So you might consider getting a private person like myself. I come out, I do the assessment, I dedicate myself to you for that. If you don't have money for that, call the local police, see if they'll do something for you. Something is better than nothing. But get an assessment of your business, your church, get an assessment of your schools, find your weaknesses and mitigate them, enhance your strengths. Right? Next thing you want to know, technology and equipment. Do you have radios? How far do they transmit? Do you need repeaters? Can you talk to someone out in the parking lot if you had to? Can you talk to somebody on the football field if you had to? What cameras do you have to see approaching danger? You know, approaching danger is very important, right? One of the things that I look at all the time when I go is, can we see it coming at us, right? Time equals life. If you can see the danger coming, it gives you an opportunity to call for help. So at a lot of schools, what I see is in the morning, in the afternoon, dangerous time, right? Because our doors are open, we have to let lots of people in and out. I often see teachers, administrators, or whoever, and they're all gathered together in the front, and they're greeting the kids as they come and go, and that's wonderful, beautiful. Everybody loves teachers and their administrators, it's great. But the problem is you can't see past the end of the buses. So what I tell people is you got to understand approaching danger, right? Put some people at the end of the buses with some radios so they can open their eyes and see, gee, look at that guy coming towards us with a shotgun. Maybe we should do something. They get on the radio and call for help. Time equals life, right? Lock them down, keep them on the bus. What would you do? Have you ever done a drill? What if somebody was in your lunchroom at your business and started shooting? What if you heard somebody at the front door and they were shooting? Do you have a place to lock down? Have you ever practiced physically getting up and going to a lockdown facility, to locking your place down? I've done a lot of private businesses, and they've created lockdown rooms. They've actually trained with their people. I did 2 large newspapers, of all things, 2 large newspapers with hundreds of people, and we did an actual drill where we sent somebody in screaming and hollering, and the person made enough of a noise where they realized it was a threat, and everyone got up and reacted. But what kind of technology do you have? What kind of equipment do you have in place? Do you have electronic notification equipment? And another thing you want to look at is staff training. De-escalation training is a great skill your employees should have, no matter where you are. Now, let's be clear though, you're not going to de-escalate an active shooter, right? Everybody else who's upset, who could potentially be violent, you can de-escalate. Right? Active shooters, you know how to have to respond when you see, because they don't usually want to talk to you if they want to shoot you. But everybody else can be de-escalated. So that's a great training to get in your facility. Do you know how to investigate threats? Or do you just assign it to somebody, right? Or do you hope for the best? The word best over there stands for Be Strategic. That's a company I found where they do electronic tabletopping. Right? Now, the old-fashioned tabletopping, we sit around, we have a problem, and everyone gives their input, because the more minds on something, the better, right? The more people we have, the better. And we can see that, you know, that's a good way to do it. We could take our time. There's no stress. We just relax and we talk our way through the problem. Great ideas can come out of a tabletop, but they're very valuable. But there's no level of stress there. And I always found that to be a little bit of a problem because it was too relaxed. There was nothing to really move us along. What best is electronic tabletopping. It's like a war game. I hate that term, but it's actually like a video game with a real scenario. Your company or your school's policies and procedures are uploaded into the system. Then me and somebody in your company, we create a scenario unique to your facility, like the one I was talking about in that school district. We created a scenario where a large protest spilled over onto school grounds and people were trying to get into the school, and how would their security react? Once we have the scenario, then we get all the people that are going to be involved, they log on, and things happen in real time. So they might get a pop-up video of a news report about a problem out in the schoolyard. They might get a newspaper clipping. They might get somebody making a phone call. Hey, do you know there's a guy in the parking lot with a gun? And then everyone who's part of your team has to react as they would in real time. And there is a level of stress to it, because as the first event happens and people are trying to decide what they should do, that's where you need policy and training so that they respond properly. Then the next event happens. Hey, the person's at the front door now and they're trying to smash in the glass. What should we be doing? What are we doing, right? So it moves along realistically and you have to respond. When you're done, it gives you unbelievable analytics, almost minute by minute, of who did what when. So you can go back and change your policy or add to your policy. It can help you create a policy if you don't have one based on how everyone responded to the scenario. So training in this area is awesome. One of the best trainings is this best electronic tabletopping. So if you have any questions about that, I'm doing that now with lots of facilities, airports, schools, but it's an amazing, amazing tool. So you want to take a look at it. I can send you more information if you just want to learn about it, you know. All right, when we go to our communication, during emergency, how does staff communicate with each other? Well, there's radios, there's VoIP phones, there's landlines, emergency notification systems, like I mentioned, on the phone, or you got on your cell phone, intercoms, cell phones. What do you have in place? What will actually work in an emergency? Do you have good cell service? Not every place has good cell service. So counting on that, like I said, our intercoms are great. And then you go in there and the intercoms don't work. How about this? You have an intercom in every room in your facility. But to get on that intercom, you got to dial 6854372, wait for the beep, dial 543987. In an emergency, do you think people are going to remember that list of code numbers? They're not. It should be a very simple code. 01, boom, opens the intercom and you can talk. You want to put all of these codes or anything you're going to use next to the phones so that in emergency, people can just see what to do. Dial 1, 2, and it opens up whatever your code you set up on, right? Simple little things, because we got to remember, in an emergency like this where there's trauma and danger, one of the first things people are going to lose is the ability to focus. They may have tunnel vision, that they don't see everything around them, and you're going to lose your fine motor skills. So the idea of putting locks in a key, keys in a lock, is not going to work. People can't do it, even under drill circumstances, because of that nervousness. They can't get the key in the lock. So what kind of locks do you have? Can they lock the room from inside? You know, when we talk about some of the horrific school shootings in Sandy Hook, the killer announced himself by breaking the glass with bullets, stepped in, started shooting. The teachers had to go in the hallway with their keys and lock the door before they could close it. And obviously we know what happened there. So having a lock or a door magnet, a little inexpensive door magnet, you lock the door, you put the magnet over the throw, it opens and closes whenever you need it to. In an emergency, from inside the room, you push the magnet out of the way, close the door, you're locked in safe. Big motor skill things, easy to remember. Students could do it. In businesses, the newspapers I talked about, they put them on their office doors. They keep their door locked all the time. They just close the door and move the magnet, close the door. Little things that we can do. Right? And notification. Who would you call? Who would make the call? How do they make the call? So one of the things I see in a lot of facilities, they say, well, the call would be made by the manager. Well, what if the manager is the first one to get taken out? The principal has to make that call. What if the principal is the one who's attacked first, like in Sandy Hook? So we have to make sure that there's multiple ways for us to call for help to get notification out. You can do this through emergency notification systems. There's pre-dialers. You can just hit a button. In some schools that I've seen, they worked up a system where they have an emergency red phone, goes directly to the police department dispatcher. Excellent. You don't have to dial. You pick up the phone and you just tell them what's going on. Great. Unfortunately, they were all putting them in the main office because that's where all their clerical staff was. If there's an emergency and there's a shooting going on, those people are going to go lock down. They're not taking that little red phone with them. So it's useless. Put the red phone where you're going to lock down so that they run there and they have the phone behind the door where it's safe, they can talk. So this is 3 pillars of communication, right? We want to prepare. We want to be able to communicate within our own group, within our own facility, and then we have to call for the outside world to come and help us. We have to plan on 15 minutes surviving without anybody getting there. Where would you lock down? Is it secure? Is it safe? Have you practiced it? Pretty simple stuff, but we need to take it seriously, right? So signs of potential violence. I know I'm going fast. I apologize. I'm trying to not keep you too long, but cover a lot of material. Signs of potential violence. Can we see it coming? Yes. People make comments. They draw things. They do social media posts. They make threats. You might hear suicidal ideation. You know, I don't want to do this anymore. I hate my life. I can't live through this. This is terrible, whatever, horrible. People write things. They kill lists. They write nasty letters. And believe it or not, the clothing that people wear can be an indicator of their radicalization, of what's going on in their heads. And I'm going to show you some pictures of that and some examples as we go forward. All right. So this, I want you to look at this. I taught a program to a bunch of schools about recognizing drawings, you know, because a lot of times people express themselves with drawings. So I explained to everybody what to look for, what does it mean, how do you interpret, and this one was pretty obvious. A teacher saw this and grabbed it off the student and said, hey, let me call that Lieutenant Pangaro because I took his class. And she says but it did a text of the picture, and I looked at it. I immediately went to the school. This is probably one of the scariest things I had ever seen, and I'll tell you why. So first of all, we see right at the top, it says kill list, right? But we see the word list is crossed out, and then it says kill plan by a gun. That tells me something. That tells me that whoever made this drawing had advanced in their thinking about what they were going to do. They originally made a kill list, but as they advanced in their thoughts, maybe they will do it, maybe they won't do it. How could they do it? Do they have weapons? Whatever. They advanced, and it went from a kill list, now it's a kill plan. So in the world of conspiracy, and I mean the crime conspiracy, not are the aliens coming to visit us kind of conspiracy. In the world of conspiracy, because a bunch of people talk about doing something illegal, that in itself doesn't make it a crime. What makes it a crime is when the group of us who decide to rob the bank take some active steps to doing it. Somebody goes to take pictures of the bank, somebody gets a gun, somebody draws up a plan. Now we've taken steps towards the plan. We're further down the road. That's an actual conspiracy, and that's a crime. So when I see this, kill list, and then crossed out list, and it's planned by a gun, I knew that this student had been thinking about this more. So I went to the school. The principal grabs the young man. He was a freshman in high school. And I asked him, I said, you know, what's in that left-hand corner there? It looks like people. What are they, in a box or something? He says, yeah, they're in a cell. I said, okay, and who's Misery, Hate, Sue, and Sick? Who is Sue? I thought it was a girl, right? Actually, Misery, he named them for how they made him feel. He was in a group, like a 6-month-long science project, and this kid felt apart from his school. Classic symptom. Didn't feel connected to other people, didn't feel connected to the school, was ostracized. He wasn't necessarily bullied, but he was not a kid who was part of things. He was on the outside, and this is a classic symptom of our shooters. They don't feel connected to the people around them. So I said, Misery, oh, it makes me feel miserable. I hate that. Sue, that person wasn't so bad. He just wanted to sue them and make them go to jail and pay money for what they did to him. And the other person was so sick, the things they used to say. I said, okay. And all right, now I know who they are. Now I look around and I see, well, there's different, see at the bottom, straight down the bottom, there's 2 people, looks like a gun, and oh no, ha, ha, ha. And X. I said, what's that? And he says, that's what I'm going to do to them because I hate them all. I want to kill them for what they did to me. I said, okay, that's what that represents. Yeah, that's me getting them. And I said, now in the middle, you see that it looks like a person laying there with X's in the eyes. So I would ask you, what does X's in the eyes mean when we see a drawing like this? Yes, I can hear you all answering. X's mean dead when there's X's in the eyes. I said, who is that? And this kid looks down, he had a tear in his eye, and he says to me, that's me. After I kill them, I'm going to kill myself because I don't want to live like this anymore. I can't stand it another minute. That student was whisked out of the building that day and went for mental health and never came back to the district. I monitored him for a little while. He got the help that he needed, but the intervention was good because of teachers saw this. Well, it doesn't matter if it's a teacher in your business. People say, do, post, draw, write things. We have to be able to decipher them, which is, and here's the lesson. This one obviously is scary. Scariest one I ever saw. This kid probably would have done something. You said, kill this. How? He asked the question, by a gun. He answered his own question. He had made a plan. Another teacher sent me something like this. Now that's the Kool-Aid guy, right? We all recognize it. He goes around, oh yeah, right? That's him. So she sees this, and there's somebody there. It looks like they got a hammer or something. He smashed him open. He looks like he's bleeding out or whatever. We talked to this kid and I said, you know, did you do this? Yes, I did. And what's the purpose of this? Well, that guy's annoying, man. He comes out, he's, oh yeah, every time he comes around. I said, what happened? So somebody knocked his juice out. I said, is that you? Is that you with that hammer? I said, no, that ain't me. This is a cartoon. This is ironic humor, silly humor. Kid was drawing. He's just an annoying thing. He drew, and you know, of course, at that time they counseled him. You know, some people could be nervous when they see drawing. Looks like somebody's getting hurt. Don't do that. But you have to identify, investigate, and see what you have. So not everything is the end of the world. Some things could be screams telling you something might happen. All right. This is another one that I pulled off of somebody in their journaling, right? Pretty scary picture when you look at it. That was a kid this person hated. They were all covered over in blood, very scary. Then there's a text. We actually pulled some screen text, and I apologize, there's some bad words in here, but this was somebody telling someone else. This was leakage. This was one student telling another student, you got a gun, got a Glock, and gonna go shoot somebody, put a bullet in somebody's chest or choke somebody to death, right? They do leakage, adults and kids. There is leakage. We can see it happen. We can see it happen, right? Social media posts are usually pure revelations by the poster, especially when they get to the point of being radicalized to attack their fellow workers or their fellow students. They often reveal true feelings and intent, and many threats are previewed here for effect. People will say things to get other people to respond. You know, I hate everybody. I should just wipe them all out. People, oh, you shouldn't do that, man. You shouldn't talk like, no, man, you don't understand how bad it is. That's a venting. People need to vent these feelings and they feel very bad and they're going to go take it out. So social media posts will reveal a lot of truth, especially about younger people. So what do we do about it? How do you keep track of it? Unless you're their friend, you're not going to see, right? You friends with all the people in your business, friends with all the kids in your school. There are tip apps you can put out. You can let people know, hey, if you hear or see something, right? See something, say something, just send me a tip. Let me know what you're hearing. You can put something up at your workplace so that people can confidentially let you know. There's a thing out there called geofencing. Sometimes the local police will work with facilities to do this, split the cost. Geofencing is an electronic digital fence you can put around a building, a neighborhood, or an entire city or state. And you put in keywords. And whenever those keywords come across social media, it'll pop up and tell you what social media, who said it, what their post was, and you keep track of it. So you put in thing like kill everyone or shoot or guns, whatever it is, it'll pop up, give you an indicator of who said it, who did it. Now you can go investigate. Or you can monitor it yourself. You can pay attention yourself. You know, is there anybody telling you? Are you friends with anybody? Are you on those things where you know your employees and you might see a post that's out there? Social media is huge. People leak. Leakage is important to help us determine if there's a problem. Right, so I said I was going to tell you about clothing as indicators. And again, we're talking about schools, businesses, everywhere. If you notice the similarity between these three active shooters, you got the Columbine killers, you got the killer from over on the right there from Virginia Tech, and then you got the guy in Dallas who ran around shooting people, shooting a lot of police officers and people in the street. All of them, as they were radicalizing towards their actual attack, they started to feel like they were going to war, and they dress like they're going to war. Look at the equipment that these people all put on when they did their attack. The Columbine kids, they're wearing BDU's battle dress uniform pants, dark colored clothing. They got gloves on. They're militarized up. Same thing with the kid over there on the right. He did a social media video telling everybody what he was going to do. He went in the building and locked the doors the night before, chained them closed. Why did nobody not pay attention to that? Why did the security not see the doors chained closed? But look how he's dressed. He's got the military vest on for the magazines and got his hat on and got the gloves. And the guy in the bottom left-hand corner in Dallas, he is militarized up with the boots and the BDUs, because as they're going to war, they start to dress like it. So one of the signs you might see is somebody who never dressed like this before starts wearing camouflage, starts wearing militarized kind of things, talking about this, wearing shirts that have sayings on them about killing or whatever. We can pay attention to little things. And that might be something now. You want to befriend that person on social media, see what they have to say or whatever. But this is a very good indicator as people radicalize, and it's adults and kids. They change their dress. Their dress matches how they're feeling and thinking about what they're going to do outside in the real world. All right. When we talk about suicidal ideation, we know, we said earlier, one of our statistics, 50% of the time these active shooters will kill themselves, either as the police arrive or when they're done killing who they could kill. So if we have someone who's showing suicidal ideations and they're not connected, they're depressed, they're going through a difficult time, they're showing signs of anger, they're showing some leakage, we want to be concerned that this person gets help, because that can certainly intervene and protect everyone, including the person, from doing something bad. If we see that they've tried to kill themselves or they had attempts in the past, research on ways to kill. If they look it up online, how could you commit suicide? What could you do? And then there's the teen suicide cluster phenomenon. Well, adults do it too, but kids do it a lot. If you see one kid will kill themselves for whatever reason, and a friend of theirs will kill themselves. And it can happen. By me here on the Jersey Shore, we had a cluster of kids who, 16 years old boys, who were molested by a baseball coach, and 3 of them within a very short period of time killed themselves, all in the same way. Because if your friends did it and it was okay that your friend did it and that was how they dealt with it, maybe I'll deal with it too. We know coming out of this pandemic that suicide for all age groups is up. Suicide is up for all age groups. You can Google it. I did one of these programs and somebody was demanding that I show them the exact statistics. Just Google it. Are suicides up in 2021? And you'll see that the suicide rate in 2020 and 2021 is because we were isolated. We were isolated from each other. We couldn't see each other, and that's not a normal human condition. So that led to lots of problems, right? Okay. We're moving along here. We're making good time. What we're going to look at now is the levels of threat. Low, medium, and high. How do you tell when somebody says something? How concerned should you be about that threat? Well, a low level of threat is non-specific, unrealistic, and unlikely to be carried out. So somebody says, I'll get a nuclear bomb and blow this place up. Well, the idea of getting a bomb is scary, sounds scary, it's terrible, but can you get a nuclear bomb anywhere? No, you can get a lot of things at the local hardware store, but you can't get a nuclear bomb. So it's not really realistic, and it's not very specific. The more specific somebody gets, the more you should be very, very concerned, and that's going to tell you how fast do you react, right? When do you call the police when you get one of these threats? So a medium threat is more specific, and you might get some indication that they did a little work on it. They thought about it. They looked up some things. You know, I'll get a pressure cooker bomb like they had in Boston, and I'll blow this locker room up. Well, pressure cooker bomb's a real thing. You can look it up. You can learn how to make one on the internet. That's a more specific threat. And then the high level threat, one we have to immediately take action for. Any of these, you would call the police and do an investigation, but this one is immediate action. It's very specific. They may name specific victims. They may even describe exactly what they're going to do. You know, I hate those guys on the football team. Every day at 3 o'clock, they go out on that field. Well, tomorrow, they ain't going to make it to the field. There's a timeline. That's tomorrow. Who's going to be? And it's an absolute threat. So when we look at threats, we have to try and determine, is it low, medium, or high, and how fast do we react and act? Right? One thing that can help us, trying to make decisions. You know, when should we do things, right? Nobody wants to underreact, and we shouldn't want to overreact either. So a matrix can help us in our initial decision making. So when we look here, what you see on the far left on the screen is a threat is made, and the first threat we see there is I'll kill you. So we want to look at some things to try and focus ourselves. Is this, what level of threat is this? Is it realistic? Have they acted on it? Or are they concerned for an immediate reaction? So the indication is the person is capable of acting on the threat. Well, they have no history of violence. There's no access to weapons that we know of. We look at the next one. Have they taken steps to act on the threat? No, somebody just said, I'll kill you. We all say stupid things sometimes, right? We have to pay attention to that threat, but there's no timeline. There's no indication of any planning. Is it imminent? No, they didn't say they're going to kill you today, tomorrow. What do you do there? You might refer that to your management. You might refer that to the principal, who would make a call to the police and let them investigate it. It's still a threat, but it's something that's a lower level threat. It's just something somebody said, and sometimes people do say things. The next kind of threat down in the left-hand corner is I'll kill Bob and Mary tomorrow morning for picking on me, right? This maybe a kid might say something like that. Indication of they're capable on acting. Yes. They have violent history. Maybe they have been into a lot of fights. They talk about hunting, they have access to weapons. Have they taken any steps to act on it? Well, you might find in a backpack or in a locker a written diagram of where Bob and Mary walked through the woods to get to school. There's somebody who's taken some time to figure some things out. And is it imminent? Yes, violence threatened in less than 24 hours. They're going to do this tomorrow. So that's an immediate call to the police, no question about it. So a matrix can help you make decisions, and you can make a matrix about any process that you have for dealing with any of this. You know, when should we lock down? If this happens, if this happens, if this happens, you know, that kind of thing. So a matrix can be helpful. So this, I'm going to try and get this to play. This is the Parkland Shooter Kid made his own videos during his leakage period, and he actually told everyone what he was going to do. And we have to pay attention to leakage. Let's see if this will play for you.
Hello, my name is Nick, and I'm going to be the next school shooter of 2018. My goal is at least 20 people with an AR-15 and a couple tracer rounds. I think I can get done. Location is Stone Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It's going to be a big event. And when you see me on the news, you will know who I am. You're all going to die.
Okay, pretty scary, right? Pretty scary. Kid was telling everybody he was going to do. Could we have intervened had somebody seen that and went and intervened with that kid? And there's lots of problems in Parkland. I do a web-based TV show on school safety and security called Hope Is Not a Tactic. We do a whole layout of what happened in Parkland. It is really a sad comedy of errors that led to the death of many people, things that could easily in any place along the way could have saved many people. And hopefully they've changed their way by then. You know, we learn a lot from each one of these incidents. So what your facility, what do you need? Again, let's cover this again. You need an unbiased TBRA, okay? If you go to, there's lots of places that'll give them to you for free too. A lot of companies that sell equipment will give you a TBRA. And I don't want to, you know, disparage any of them. I've seen a lot of them that are really genuine, but I've seen, you know, a door company, a window company, an alarm company, and they say, oh, we'll do it. Right? I say, oh, you need new alarms. You need new doors. You know, you want an unbiased TBRA. You want to know your weaknesses, because I'll tell you, a lot of people think, well, I don't have any money to do anything. If we find out that I have a weakness, then I have to spend money to do it. And that's really wrong-headed thinking in this modern world. The way the courts look at things, right? The way the courts look at things, there's expected levels of safety and security that every facility is expected to have. In our modern world, do we know that active shooters are in our schools and in our businesses and in our religious places and every place we gather? Yes, we do. Do we know they can strike at any time? Yes, we do. So to say, well, we didn't expect it here, so we didn't do anything, you're just going to have to add zeros to the check that you're going to have to pay to everyone who's hurt and injured in your facility. So what you can do for liability reduction, and that's what it would be, a reduction, you get a TBRA. Because you go to the court and you say, Your Honor, we had our school assessed, our business assessed, and the assessor told us we need $2 million worth of stuff, and we didn't have $2 million. But we got the assessment done, and next year we're going to buy this, and next year we're going to put this in place, and next year we're going to do that. At least you have a plan. The key is to have a written plan. It shows that you were aware of the danger and you did what you could to mitigate the danger. They don't expect you to run out and spend $3 million. Nobody has that, but they expect you to do something. So doing nothing, you turn around and you go, imagine if one kid got hurt in your school or one employee got shot and you did nothing. And the cost of a TBRA can be $10,000 to $25,000, $30,000, depending on the size of your thing. You know how many zeros are going to be attached to the check you're going to have to write if you didn't do anything? So do something, get some kind of an assessment, and then start to make a plan. That's important. You need policy. How you expect everyone to react, what you expect people to do. You need procedures and protocols. What do we do if there's a shooter? What do we do if we hear a threat? How are we going to investigate? Then you want to train everybody, right? The training is not that difficult. I trained 300-400 people at a couple of newspapers in one day, and they knew what to do. They felt better. They looked around their rooms. They knew where they could lock down. They knew how they could protect themselves. It's not hard, but you have to do it. Same thing in your schools. You think you're going to lock down in one place. Is it really viable to lock down? Should you flee? Should you flee and run out of the building? There's training out there that tells you the first thing you should do is flee the building, right? I don't know. I looked at that and I said, they tell you to put the little kids out the window, tell them to run. I mean, you're going to put kindergartners out the window and tell them to run? I mean, they're not going to leave their teacher. I don't understand some of the training that's out there, but you need to train your staff. You need to know what's realistic, what could really happen. And then there's that electronic tabletop training I was talking about. Very, very valuable to see how your people react, how your policies respond under real timetable. Very, very important. Right? The TBRA, what it gives you, a thorough and comprehensive review of your facility security, designed to identify any gaps in your facility, and creates a roadmap report that describes the gaps and how to remediate them. So I create one. I don't just tell you where you have a problem. I'm going to tell you how to fix it. And then you can make a timeline for doing that, whether it's something. Most of the TBRAs start out, they tell you a lot of things right off the bat that are free and easy to do that maybe you didn't think of, right? Shocking, some of them are just so easy that would increase security a lot, very easily and inexpensively. And then there's more expensive things, cameras and like that. You plan for that. You do capital improvements and you plan for that. You have a plan, you know where you're going to keep your place safe, you know what your risks are, right? That's the whole thing to risk management, is understanding your risks and mitigating as best as you can, right? Policy and procedure, there's some concern that having a written policy can be a problem. They can use it against you. The courts look for policy. That's what they want to know. Did you have a policy and procedure for this? Well, we thought if we had one, somebody could sue us for not doing it. No, well, it depends on how you write your policy. You can write it so that there's so that it's not written in stone. Like one of the things they say, one district wanted me to write this policy for them that said every teacher will go out the back door and they will run to the woods. Well, what if the teacher can't get out the back door? Now they're in violation of policy. So you can write it in a certain way that if the opportunity presents itself, it is suggested the teacher take the children, go out the back door and go and hide in the woods, right? If that's safe and appropriate, because not everyone's going to do your policy. What if they get scared? There's fight or flight, but it's really fight, flight, or freeze. Sometimes people freeze. So you have to protect yourself with your policy, but it helps you to at least set the guidelines. This is what we expect of you, and we're going to practice it. That's how people survive. They survive things by practicing them, by knowing what to do. Deescalation training is a good staff training, proper investigations, surviving the active shooter incident, conducting drills, and creating a human threat assessment team so you can look at any threats that come your way. Very, very important. If you don't have any of these, you want information on it, reach out to me. At the end, I'll give you my number. I have information on all of these, how to do it, what you can do. I'd rather you do it yourself if you're concerned about it, but I can come out and do it for you. All right. We talked about the basics of tabletop training. What's great about this best product, and the reason I fell in love with it, because it's not my company. I was looking for better training things for people that I teach, and I teach training to law enforcement, schools, business, everybody. And I found this best software, and it is just absolutely amazing. A good example is I went to my company as a familiarization, and I wanted them to see how it makes you feel, how it makes you react. And we did a hurricane scenario where an unexpected hurricane hit an area where our building is, and we have a lot of electronics and a lot of expensive equipment. And when we got done, the entire team, 14 or 15 people that were on the major management team, were actually, they said, man, my heart was racing because I had to make decisions. The things were happening. We had to worry about employees and danger. We came up with a 15-point punch list, action list to do in case there was a major storm near our building. And this was just a practice drill. So these kind of drills are really important. They're very, very helpful for you to put this together. If you want any questions on that, I'm telling you, anything that I'm talking about, I'll give you information on, all right? You need to understand these things, and if I can help you, that's what I've dedicated my life to here, all right? It makes the training come alive. That's what I like about it. It's a real live time event. You have to respond in real time, making real decisions, and then you see where you can fix it based on the decisions everyone made. Really, really a great program. All right. TSD, True Security Design, that's my company. Pangaro Training is when I go out and do the training. We have tabletop risk management exercises. We do it in a lot of different markets. We do it for schools, K-12 and higher education. We do it for law enforcement and corrections departments. I go in and help the police figure out things that they need to work on, government agencies, and businesses. We do natural disasters. How about cyberware, ransomware, cybersecurity? How is your team going to respond when somebody hacks into your system and wants to start taking it over? You know, in the school district where I was, on a Friday afternoon, one of the clerical people got an email that her credit card was overdue for payment on her work email. She opened it up, not realizing that her credit card wouldn't have her work email. And she left the computer on when she went home. And it was a ransomware that went through the entire district, got to every computer by Monday morning. Can you train your people to recognize these things? Can you train them to respond to this kind of stuff? Cyberware and ransomware is happening every single day. Every one of you listening to me, every school, every business, every church, everybody should be concerned about cyberware, ransomware attacks, and how you can train everybody to do the right thing. So I have all information on that too to help you with that, because that is a threat also. All right. Safety and security is an ongoing effort. Go create a relationship with your local PD. I know as a law enforcement officer and a school security director that it is not always easy to have a relationship with your local police. Maybe there's not a lot of them. Maybe they're not motivated to come and help you. Maybe you're lucky and have a great local police department, right? I suggest that you call the chief or the head officer at your agency. Tell them who you are. Tell them you want them to stop by. Do the police officers stop by your facility? Do they know your facility? Do they know the back doors, the side doors? In an active shooter incident, if you were to say, hey, listen, they're at the loading dock. Well, I would assume it's probably in the back. But if I have to take time to go find your loading dock, people are getting killed. Having the cops come there, swing by, have a cup of coffee, walk around the building, they get to know the building. Same thing with the schools. There's a shooter in the science wing. Well, if those cops don't know where your science wing is, they're going to spend a lot of time trying to find it. You want them familiarized with the building, so ask them to come by. Conduct tabletop drills for your staff and the police. Get your facility assessed. Get a professional quality assessment so you know what you need to do. Assess your security equipment, train your staff, and create some really good policy, and then practice, practice, practice. You have to do real drills of value. We could talk about drills. Actually, I'll probably do a webinar on drills. You know, we did live drills in our place where we had the teachers and the students, everyone had to react to whatever stimulus we put in, somebody screaming and hollering, and then they had to move. And yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking for people. But in a real incident, it's not going to be calm. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be polite. In a real incident, there's going to be people screaming and hollering. There might be weapons going off. And people need to know how to get up and go and move. And you do that by making it as realistic as is appropriate for your audience. What we did for high schools and what I do for a local business is totally different than what we would do for the middle school or an elementary school, just like it's different than a college. You have to plan around the audience that's going to be doing your training, but you want people to move. You want them to be inoculated to the fear of an incident. And you do that by making it realistic. Make your training realistic. Don't just check off a box. Yeah, we did our lockdown drills. That's great. You know, we record them when we do a TBRA. We do a surprise lockdown. Some principals lose their minds. They can't do it. Other principals want to know their safety and security. So they lock the place down, and we run around with a camera and we record. And we see people, all right, that's enough. Actually, people, that's enough. Enough with that. Back to teaching. You see people not hiding themselves properly. You can see them in the windows. It's really sad sometimes the way people take this seriousness, and because, oh, it'll never happen here. That is the most dangerous thing you can ever say. So you want to look in the mirror and say to yourself, do I ever say that? It'll never happen here. Because while statistically, I will tell you, your chances of having an active shooter in your workplace, your church, your school is very, very small. For the number of incidents, there's probably 20 to 30 live active shooter incidents a year. Think of all the businesses and the schools. But I ask everybody every time, and I'll ask you right now. It's a small number. When and where is the next one going to take place? When and where are you going to have to stand up in front of parents and say, you're so sorry that 30 kids were shot and killed because you didn't think about it or didn't do enough because it would never happen here? Or how are you going to tell people that work in your factory, gee, you're really sorry that this happened, right? When and where's the next one going to take place is my question. And I've been asking this for 15 years. Not one person has ever raised their hand to tell me, Lieutenant Joe, here's where it's going to happen. Because if it did, I'd go there and be a hero. I would save everybody, right? The reality of this is, while statistically it's a small number, the reality is it either happens to you or it doesn't. You got to be ready. You have to be prepared. And no, we don't want to walk around paranoid that we're going to die. Someone's going to kill us. We can't live like that. But you have to be aware and prepare. Time equals life. How do you buy time for people to survive, right? These are simple things to think about, easy to do really good drills, get a TBRA, do the right thing, keep people alive. And as we come out of this this lockdown period of our lives here, the COVID-19, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. So be ready. Think about it, please. All right. I wrote a guide. It's called Securing Your School. It's an ebook, you know, where you have to do it on a Kindle or something like that. It's on Amazon. I think it's like $2.99, but it is a complete run through everything you need to think about, right? So you go to Amazon, Joe Pangaro, Securing Your School, $2.99. You download it, and I go through what to look at, what to think about, what to consider, and take a look at it yourself. Do something rather than do nothing. Or you can call me, and I'll come to your school. I'll come to your business. I'll train your people. I'll set you all up. Whatever it is, we're here to help. That's why we're doing this program. So you start thinking, are we doing enough? Are we doing the right things? What more could we do? So I got this book, $2.99. You go in there, you look at it, and then look around your place. Are we doing these things? Can we add some of these things to our facility? Probably a smart move for everybody to do. All right. I want to thank everybody for being here. I really do. When I say that this has become, you know, the focus of my life, it is. I did my police career. I worked in the schools, and now I teach and train. And my job is to keep people safe, to help people keep each other alive. We have to work together on this. We want to protect our kids. We want to protect our employees. We want to protect everybody. We do that by thinking, planning, and acting. So the 3 pillars can help you looking at what you do, your policy and your procedure, and do real drills. So if anybody has any questions, there's how you can reach out to us. info@ipvideocorp.com. There's a phone number there you can call. Tell somebody who you are, who you want to talk to. Lieutenant Joe, they'll get the call to me. And then you can go on and see the training I have, the other things that we offer, ipvideocorp.com/TSD. That's True Security Design, right? So go take a look. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is food for thought. Go back and have a meeting with whoever is in your business, your school. Do we do these things? Do we really practice? Go watch a real drill sometimes. See what's happening in your facilities. Make sure people are doing the right thing. Right? You want to keep everybody alive. So that's the program I have for you today. I really want to thank you for being here. I never mind a question. I'm not going to try and sell you everything. I would rather answer your questions and have you be safe. All right. Thank you. Have a great day. And I'm going to see if I can learn how to turn this off now, because I think I just stopped showing. And I think that's it. Have a great day, everyone.